We're on episode 6, This Life in Tech. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, greetings, Earthlings.
Oh, man. So I was just telling Dan, I upgraded my cam. I got a Logitech C920. I'm coming to you in 1080p. Yo. Looks much better. Let's see how my shitty bandwidth handles it.
You still look like shit from my end.
Yeah. Well, I did shave. I did shave.
I'm not asking with what or where.
I'm a real man. I shave with a fucking Bowie knife. Oh, God
I've
damn.
been to your place. I've never seen the Bowie knife.
Because I'm a good fucking ninja. I hide my knives.
Knives.
Check this out. I mean, we're not even going to get on topic yet. Check this out, man. I'll never forget this. I had, when I worked at the big restaurant company, there was a dude in HR that was a self-professed Kung Fu grandmaster. Okay?
I love it when people are self-professed like that.
And this guy one time was telling me and a couple of the dudes I worked with that he had knives and weapons hid all around his house, like in secret drawers and shit, so that if anybody ever broke in, he could just get something. And so I turned to the guy. I'm like, well, listen, man, I thought you were like deadly with your hands and you had to register them with the police and all that stuff. So, I mean, that doesn't like comport with reality. Either you're a Kung Fu expert and you don't need weapons, or you need weapons because you're not a Kung Fu expert. Which is it? He didn't like
the
that.
weapons are an extension of your hand. That's just what it is.
That sounds exactly like what somebody would say. They really don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
No, it's actually true. That's how they teach it.
I know. That's the philosophy of it. I know. But this guy, man, he was so easy to troll too, because he always wanted to fight because he was a little dude, right? So he had Napoleon complex. So this one time, man, we made up this story of a dude that I knew who was opening up a dojo in the area, and he was inviting all the other masters in the area to come in and fight. And this dude instantly was like, tell me his name. Tell me his address. I'll go there right now and kick his ass. So we sent him to a fucking empty warehouse.
That's awesome. See, and that just goes to show you that one, there is no way he is what I would consider a true martial artist. Like there's a big difference between combat sport, because we're both big fans of MMA, right? Yeah. There's a big difference between that and people who are martial artists, because they're more zen, they're more chill. They're not out there looking for a fight. They, my uncle, I would fit into this category, who's always like, we just don't, we practice because we know we're never going to need to use it. They wind up getting just in tune with everything, and they're like, the mojo's bad and they're out. Now, mind you, my uncle's now I think he's like 74, 75, and I have yet to ever lay a hand on him, ever. Like, he just throws me around the room. I mean, it's just, one day I might get to that point.
That philosophy of practicing because we'll never need it applies to masturbation too, doesn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, they train, they practice so that they would not have to use it. I guess
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
At some point, my friends, you cross this barrier and you realize that it's just more work than it needs to be.
I'm not sure I'm willing to go there just yet, but
my wife's watching, man. I got to say something.
Well. Yeah. Is she watching, or is she in the other room?
No, she's probably in the other room watching on the TV. I got to watch what the fuck I say, because I think the girl that comes over, Bianna, that helps with the babies in the room too. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, nice.
Fuck it, man.
At least you're willing to be on camera and say this kind of stuff. Unlike Mr. What do we call him? Mr. I don't even remember.
That pussy Ian.
Yeah, but we called him something else in order to protect him. He's like, I don't want to be on camera. So we found out that not only is he scared of open water because he just doesn't know what's underneath him, he's also scared of the camera. So,
Well, you know, man, I don't think it's bad to have a few phobias. I mean, I'm not a big fan of going in the ocean because of Lord Cthulhu and shit like that, you know? But I'm willing to get on camera and act like a fool. Well, I actually act like myself, which probably a lot of people think is a fool. And I realize that. And hey, at least somebody's getting entertained. And if it ain't you, it's me. So, I mean, I think you get like a phobia allocation in life. You can only have so many. Otherwise, why don't you just like go live in a bubble? And I don't know, man. I couldn't believe that guy didn't want to do it. I was honestly shocked.
well,
Honestly,
even worse than that, he told us he was going to do it, and then he backed
yeah,
out.
yeah. I mean, this was prearranged, and then we offered to just have him audio only, not put the camera on him.
Yeah, we were going to put. He said he had a luchador mask at home and was going to wear that, and we were going to give him a different name, and he still backed out. He's like, no, my voice. I'm like, we can voice change.
You know, I had a girlfriend one time that liked it when I wore a lucha libre mask.
Was it Pete's girlfriend too?
Oh God, I'm gonna see that guy soon. I think. I was just daydreaming, man. Fuck it. What do we want to talk about today? You know, something that keeps coming up, man. I had this conversation probably at least 2 times this week, in classes with students, talking about how do you manage your time? How do you remain tip top, 100% effective at all times? Because I think you and I would agree that, I mean, beyond personality, if you want to progress to a certain level, you have to go 100% ham 100% of the time. If you give half measures, you're going to get half results. You know, so how do you do it? How do you schedule? How do you prioritize? And man, I don't know. You know, I'm open to the fact that I'm a little eccentric. I think not as much as some people we know, but certainly more than others. So I probably have a weird way of going about shit. I don't know. What do you do, man? How do you handle everything? Because you got a busy life too. Did you hear my question?
Maybe your first episode, or you don't know a lot about Jason and I. We both work full time, both have families, and both teach basically full time. So you know, we're constantly doing things. We're helping other students. I'm also on the board of a couple of different organizations. So it's more than a full time schedule. So for me, and this is probably the hardest thing I think for anyone to really say or do, which is you can't do everything. You've got to learn to say no. And I think at work, this is hard. And I don't mean like saying no in that, no, that's a bad idea. When people ask you to do things, and you have your core primary things that you need to get accomplished, you can't say yes to everyone that needs help.
Yeah.
You have to get your priorities accomplished first. And then if you have spare time in that day at that particular point, and then you choose to help someone do their job, because that's really what they're asking. Hey, I can't do my job without X, and that X at this point might be you, or that they just need help with it because, you know, maybe they're lazy, maybe they need training, maybe it's something, but you've got to get your priorities done first. So for me, the first thing is,
Are you still there, bro? Because your feed cut out on my end.
whoa, we lost internet there for a while, or at least I did.
Yeah, I think it was on your side. I'm still here. Now you're there back. I don't know. The last thing I heard you say was learning how to say no and getting your stuff done first before you helped somebody else. That's the last thing I heard.
Well, I think this internet. So I switched over to hotspot.
Oh. Well, this raises, let's pause for a second. And this raises an interesting question. How is it the 21st century I think, inarguably the superpower in the world, and we can't do a basic fucking video podcast because of the internet?
And now in this life in tech, I can't even hear anything you're saying. It just sounds like a machine. So I'll disconnect and reconnect.
Fair enough, man. I'll talk. So let me say this while Dan's resetting his shit. Saying no is hard. So what I personally do, and Dan knows some of this because we talk about this all the time on the side about, how do you manage, how do you prioritize, how do you say no, how do you say yes, how do you try to be, how do you come up with a strategy? Because what, in my opinion, you don't want to do, my friends, is be surprised. I don't think you want to be in a situation where somebody's asking you for help and you already don't know because of what you have going on if you can say yes or no. Can you hear me now, Dan?
Yeah.
All right. So what I was saying was, I like to have a strategy, a very broad look at me. I'm not somebody that has these detailed project plans. I don't work that way. Too much structure is too restrictive for me. But having no plan, having no strategy also doesn't work, because what I think is, you would agree, to me, what ultimately is the biggest disruption is having to make a decision with no information. So I like to have a rough idea, on a day-to-day basis of what needs to be done, very high level. So that way I know what my capacity is. So if somebody contacts me for help or assistance, I already know ahead of time that this is my strategy for today. Maybe I don't have anything going on and I've kicked ass the first part of the week and I have all my stuff done that I wanted to get done for the week. So now I'm into like bonus round type stuff, right? So maybe I have capacity. Or, maybe this week I have a ton of stuff that I wanted to accomplish and I'm only half done. So I have zero bandwidth to allocate to helping anybody other than myself at that point. And that's a hard ritual to practice, man. And I'll tell you what makes it easier for me is having that rough day-to-day strategy. And I manage it with technology.
Yeah, very true. I have project plans, but those plans are more for a reporting aspect, where I hold other people accountable. I don't need it so detailed, which is what I tell the direct reports at work. Hey, I don't care how you accomplish this milestone, but you better have a plan. You better know when you need to order things by. You need to know when you need to implement it by, when that contract ends, because I'm reporting on these milestones, and I don't really give a shit when you get it done, how you get it done, as long as it's done by this date. And for me, I get a lot of things done by electronic lists. It's funny because we talk about privacy, and yet I use a dummy Google account, but utilizing Google Voice memos and things of that nature. I mean, that's one of the great parts about the phone that we make. I have multiple spaces in there, and I've got one that's just literally for this type of thing. I think of something that I want to do this, and I literally, okay, Google, bam, and there went my phone because I just said it.
That's funny as fuck, man.
And I take a note. I have it take a note, bam, reminder, and it gets down to it. And then I use Doodle in order to be able to cross things off. Yep. I know I'll arrange everything I want, and this is what I'm going to accomplish today. And you know what? I don't go to sleep that day until everything on my list that I said I was going to accomplish today is completed.
Yeah, I use something similar. I kind of follow. Have you heard of a time management technique called getting things done, where you use like the whole inbox with priority tags? You heard of this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so I kind of use a modified system of that. The true getting things done is a little too restrictive for me. I found for the way I work, the overhead of doing all that, it's a little too much for me. So I kind of minimized it. I stripped it out a little bit. And I use Evernote, and I use the Google Keep, the notes. I use a combination of the two. I keep longer term things in Evernote so that I can append a lot of data to it so I can keep track of what I'm working on. And for simple things, like here's a great piece of advice. I don't know. I think you probably do this very differently than me. I only check my email 3 times a day, only 3 times. I don't pull email on my phone at all, right? And I try to make a very conscious effort to limit how much time I spend using email. Now, what I do is I'm very diligent in taking emails and turning them into tasks and prioritizing on, okay, what needs this, what needs that. That's really helped me out over the years in making more time available to actually get stuff done rather than just pushing email back and forth. Now, the 3 times a day I spend on email, I mean, I'm not spending like 5 minutes. I'm spending, a material amount of time on it. That helps. And then turning things into concrete tasks, not one-word things, right? Full sentences. This needs to be done with these people, with these tools, and then putting dates and times on them, and keeping track of it. I track what I complete by day, by week, by month, by category, right? Because I use a lot of metadata, a lot of labels, a lot of tags to keep track of, this is what I was doing.
Right. I do it a little bit differently. My email, for the most part, I do a quick look at the sender. My phone goes off, buzz, and I take a look. I don't read it necessarily, but if it's coming from, essentially 2 people at work, for the most part, I look at it pretty much right away, and then I process it, and I'll use the follow-up flag as to whether or not it's something I'm going to look at that day or not.
Right. Right.
Outside of that, I know if it is important, that they will either text me or they will call me.
Exactly.
Exactly. So while I do a quick look and see the subject line, it's not necessarily that I'm reading the email. There's probably, it doesn't bother me that I've got 15,000 emails in my inbox that I have not read. And more than likely, I will never read them. I keep them, and basically at a certain point, what winds up occurring is that they get archived off, just in case I ever have to go back. Because a lot of times it's just a follow-up. Well, not really a follow-up, but it's more that there's something there, important data, because someone has CC'd me on it. Which, if I'm CC'd on an email, it just automatically goes to a different folder once it's processed on my MacBook.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
If I'm CC'd, then
that's the other thing I started doing too. About a year and a half ago, is I don't save email at all. What I do, if it's something that I need to persist because it's data I need in the future. Some project that I know I'm not going to work on for a while, some really sensitive, important communication, whatever, right? What I do is I put that into another tool like Evernote, and I make it a part of a project, and I tag it and all that shit. I don't use email for anything other than just messaging.
I have it for contractual things that are contracts. Certain things that the flag is there. Hey, I need to follow up on this email, and that email is going to follow up. It is a year from now, because it's either I got to cancel the contract, I got to give them a certain amount of notice, things like that, or that I have it for a budgeting aspect. So whenever we sign a contract for a product or something along those lines, from a budgeting aspect, I know we're doing our our budget for the next year in October. So I flag things that were purchased for September 30th, and it goes into a separate folder, and I don't look at it again. But I'll get my notification that, hey, you need to look at this email. And so then I go back through and I know it. And now once that's done and I've given my notification and I've already put it in there, I've already got it tagged in a different format, email's gone.
Yeah.
I purge everything for probably every 9 months it's purged.
Right. The other thing I do too, man, when I'm done checking my email on those intervals, I go back and I look at all the tasks I have created, whether it's notes or reminders in Evernote or whatever, right? And I make sure that I reprioritize. And things that are supposed to be done now are taken care of now. I also suspect that because of the nature of our positions and the nature in some of the differences in the work we do, that, and this is something for our audience to keep in mind. I mean, there's no one answer for everybody. A lot of the work I do is asynchronous, meaning I prep it and then I disconnect and I work. So I don't need a constant connection to a communication system, for instance, because I don't do work that requires it. If I were in sales or some high demand coordination position, that'd probably be different, right? Maybe you need to be constantly connected so that you're keeping that pulse and communicating, right? So I don't know, man. And I'm just very judicious and not letting people take advantage of my time. I'm not shy about telling people to get the fuck out.
Right, sure. And I think it's probably, I'll take a step back for a moment to get people kind of like a glimpse into kind of how I do my day. And I was very big growing up with sports. I'm still quite active as much as I possibly can. But I look at things in that winning is contagious. So is losing, for that matter. Any streak is a streak. So what I do first thing in the morning, because I have Google alerts that are set up, I get notified every morning as to everything that happened in the last 24 hours that may be of importance to either research that I'm doing or the company or companies that I'm having to doing work for, because this way I know exactly what's happened at that moment. And the funny thing is, my Google alerts, those metadata tags that you were referring to, are more useful than we get people at our company that are paid to give us like news research, and I find stuff that they just don't find. And so that's why I tend to just not use them. But my lists are built for my day to kill off all the low-hanging fruit first, because accomplish. So that way, as I'm rolling through the day, I have built up a connection with winning, and that harder task, I wouldn't say towards all the way at the end of the day, but I've built up enough momentum that harder task no longer feels like a hard task. There is this, to me, it's like, hey, I wake up in the morning, bed is made. I'm looking at my Google alerts. I'm reading some documents. I write down some notes. I get in the car. I have things that are read back to me. A lot of audio books, things of that nature that I have going on. So that way my drive into work is being productive because I'm on the road. So that hour, if it's a shitty DC traffic, I've got an hour that I have done. I've accomplished something. I'll make phone calls in the car, so I'm not wasting that moment. I get to work and actually into the office, and that momentum just keeps building. I think that's extremely important to feel accomplished every day. It's a series of wins, because that's really gets me through when all of a sudden I'm not going to have all of those wins that I know. Just like football, a quarterback has thrown umpteen amount of incomplete passes. What does the play caller do? They give us some run plays and then some screen passes, because that short little pass that they connected, which is a high percentage play, builds confidence. And that's probably, to me, the biggest thing, is to continue building confidence throughout the day.
Yeah, and to kind of extend that idea, the general idea of pacing is important. I also am very careful not to stack too many priorities of the same magnitude back to back, so that you can kind of have this nice ebb and flow, right? And like you, I don't want a hard critical priority pending with a bunch of small things hanging over it, because all of a sudden that last 20% of a hard project is hard enough by itself, right? But then you have 100% of all these other things that still need to be done. And they're going to distract you, and they're going to psychologically demotivate you to finish that 20%, let alone get onto the other 100%. And momentum is vastly underrated. I do the exact same thing you do, man. I take care of all the 5, 10, 15-minute tasks early, get them out of the way, and prepare for a big effort. I think if you structure those small, low-hanging fruit tasks the right way, it also functions like a warm-up, right? You get not only the momentum, but you get neurons firing in certain patterns. You get thoughts rolling. And then it's just a matter of, like you mentioned too, using technology to make it even easier. Very often if I'm in traffic, which happens quite a bit out here, I'll use voice dictation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll write emails asynchronously, and then I'll translate that into a written message using voice dictation into my PC or whatever. And well, I'm already done. Now I just have to wait for the technology to catch up to me, which, is only getting better. Having things read to you by the technology, right, saves time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
if like you, right, if you're sitting in traffic, you're not doing anything else, right? I'm not actively using my phone, so I'm not distracted. The voice commands are super, super good. So you might as well take advantage of that time. And I also like things. I like technology that engages me. I like technology that engages me. That's why I use reminders heavily, not alarms, but reminders, to kind of have that rough strategy of, okay, on a high enough view, this is what my day, my week, my month is going to look like.
Absolutely. One of the other things that I do, which is not really a direct technology thing, but again, productivity. It's a little bit more difficult, for me here in DC at this time. But I will go and take a walk. I will turn off, for the most part, the noise for the cell phone, so I don't get an email notification, I don't get a text notification, nothing. And I will just think about whatever it is that it's like a walking meditation, and then I will use the phone for that voice dictation because some idea came up that I don't talk to anyone when I go to this walk. I might have a cup of coffee with me. Sometimes it's bourbon, sometimes it's beer, but I will do that. I will take a walk, and I just don't talk to anyone. My headphones are in, but I'm not listening to anything. It's just mainly because I'm psyching other people out. So if they go to try to say something, it's, hey, they see headphones and they don't even bother. But it's really that silence, that walking meditation that assists me in basically a mental recuperation especially if it's been on long mental tasks that I've had to work on.
Yeah, there's a lot of recent science that shows that some type of moving meditation, particularly walking, can lead to a lot of creative thought. And it's a very beneficial process in exactly the way you describe it. I do the same thing. In fact, not all the time, but my routine tends to be check email on one of those 3 intervals, realign my tasks, and then take a walk. And that allows me to start to prep what I'm going to do for those tasks.
Oh, yeah.
And then again, it's just a matter of using the technology to your advantage, right? Whether it's voice dictation, the voice technology to read things back to you, using technology so that people don't interrupt. Because let's be honest, and it's not their fault. The vast majority of people are looking out for themselves, and they should be. It's not a bad thing. So that means they're going to try and maximize the amount of time you spend helping them and minimize the amount of time they spend helping you, right? That's just basic behavior. All primates do that. But you have to be aware of that, and you have to manage it. Helping people is good. You and I both love helping people. We've talked about that. Part of talking about this is helping people. But you have to make sure that your goals are being served. Is what you're doing contributing to the greater good for you and those around you? And at some point you like to do it for the species. I mean, I do. You're a piece of shit. I'm teasing, man.
I'm not of this species.
Exactly. Yeah, you're of the poop species. The poop.
Yeah. That's something.
No, right? There's this hierarchy, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but there's a hierarchy of help and advantage, and those not in the Machiavellian sense, right? It's not a malicious negative thing.
Well, no, there's science. I mean, there's science about this. Like, so they say that if multiple people fell into like a body of water, one of them is a small child, one is an adult. Do you save your spouse first or your child first? And they always say that you should save the spouse first because the child is going to be more resilient. They have more of a chance of surviving being under that water for a longer period of time than the adult.
Yeah.
So you have to prioritize things accordingly. It's not that things are. Priority may not necessarily be the right choice of word, but you have to take a look for yourself first, because if your shit ain't all together, then there's no way you're going to be able to help anyone else.
Yeah, call it triage.
Yeah, sure.
I think
Triage,
that's
that's a better
fair.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think prioritization is a bad word, but part of it is also triage.
Hmm.
Because to me, triage adds much more of a time-based element than priority. Priority is how important I think something is to me, right? This is my opinion. Whereas triage has that, but it also has that next piece, which you and I clearly think is important, which is how fast do I need to get this done? How immediate is this to my reality?
Yeah, very true. So I'm trying to think what other kind of, so we've talked a little bit about some of the technologies we use, some of the techniques that we use. Uh, what else could we tell our friends here that are watching on about what kind of productivity and time management things that we do?
Uh,
Um,
Delegation is the next big thing on my list.
what's that?
Delegating, making
Oh,
sure that you spend
yes.
when you spend time, making sure that you're spending time as an architect and that you're delegating labor.
Yep. I do this, all work. I mean, at here at Silent Circle, I've got, the largest organization overall in the company.
Hmm.
I can't, all I tend to do is meetings, 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 meetings. So I have to delegate out the work. If I were to try to do it myself and accomplish all, and with all of the meetings and that I have to uh, partake in on a day-to-day basis, I wouldn't sleep. I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's interesting because when you're younger and you're first starting your career, you look at the leadership, and it's very common to think, well, I mean, they don't know what they're doing. They couldn't do my job. No, 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 that's not it. They know how to do your job, and more than likely, especially the people you and I work with, well, have worked with, right? It's not that I can't. It's that that's not my function. That's not my role. And if you step outside of your role, that means you're not being effective in the role you're supposed to be in. And even though you want to help, or even though you might want to save somebody from some pain, it's not the right decision all the time. Sometimes it is. And then sometimes there's just simply not enough time to get it all done because there's still things that, you have on your triage or prioritization list that have to get accomplished. The other thing inside of this in delegation that I've really become aware of in the last, let's say, 6 to 8 months, um, is being very clear in the rules of that delegation, right? Here's what I'm willing to do for you. Here's what I expect in exchange. Do we have an agreement? And if not, then what's negotiable? And being ultra clear in expectations.
That's a good point. That negotiation piece to things. I think a lot of people uh, they want to fight over everything rather than determining what's truly important. Um, and this is something that I have to do a lot at uh, at work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I purposely give up things that make it seem like it was a big deal, when in reality, by me doing so, got me a win. I got rid of something that I didn't want to have to deal with anymore. And to that other person, it made it look like it was a big deal, where in reality, it was nothing.
I
Um,
used to do this all the time with auditors, like when I was dealing with PCI DSS. Um,
yeah,
I would I would I would leave
I'd kill
little
myself
things.
if I had to do that.
I would leave little things that were findings for these people to find that needed to be fixed, right? But they were very minor issues for multiple reasons. One, it made them feel good. They were earning their money, which everybody wants to do, right? You just don't. I don't. Despite what most people think, most people want to try and contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Capability and capacity are different. We're not talking about that, but people want to feel like they're doing something, right? So there's a psychology to it. Then the other thing too is it controls time. That auditor is only engaged for so long. They can only bill so many hours, right? So if I give them red herrings to spin on, that means they're not looking at other places, right? So you can control it that way. And I found it
Absolutely.
to be a very effective way to go about engagements where, it's not that I'm hiding something. It's about controlling. It's about strategy. It's about, look, here's something that you can find that's minor, that isn't going to be a fight, so that when it comes to something that I know is going to be a fight, well, I gave you this. You kind of owe me now. You're in my pocket.
Yep, I do that with budgeting too. I
Hmm.
purposely put things in there. I specifically call it out in a line item that's going to take notice because of the wording, and I could focus on it, and I'd be like, well, this is just what people are asking for, and I'm here to serve. If you don't think it's valuable, then I'm more than happy to get rid of it. Bam, it's gone, and it made it look like that I cut out 30% of my budget, when in reality, I was cutting out the things that I was never really planning on doing to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I just made it official.
Exactly. And then, another big thing too that I think is more of a strategy is learning to put aside what I think is best for what moves the mission forward. Kind of getting out of your own way. I see a lot of people, especially in some of our current situations, really getting in their own way, and they don't realize it, right? Just by trying to hang on to some really meaningless point because of ego, they get in their own way, and because they're getting in their own way, they're blocking progress for the whole.
Absolutely.
Learning to get out of your own way and not cause problems for yourself when there doesn't need to be problems. Why do you want to make a problem where there's not one? Deal with problems because they will come. It's inevitable, right? If you do enough long enough, you'll have problems, and deal with those problems then. Why do you want to create problems before they exist? Look, man, if I give you a piece of advice because you ask and you follow it or don't, how does it materially impact me? I fulfilled the task that was engaged on, right? You asked for advice, I gave it to you. It's not that I don't care about you. It's not a personal thing. What you do with the advice is your decision, not mine. You didn't ask me to make the decision for you. That's kind of an example of what I mean.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people out there, and the reason why they do this is that they would rather be right and the team lose than win, or rather than be wrong and the team win. This is that whole aspect of, hey, you're the best player on the last place team.
Yeah, good job. Good job.
Yeah, you never had to do it under pressure because your team was never winning. So could you produce those same results under pressure? The thing that I like to tell people all the time, when it came to that sports analogy, was it's not the superstar athletes making superstar plays that win games. It's the average player in game critical situations making the routine play that wins. And that's why I tell people in like that series of talks that I've talked to you about in terms of like lessons from a CSO. I would rather have a team of solid B players all the way around that are going to give 100% of the time than a bunch of A players. Because those A players, one, they think they're already good. They may know they're already good, and they're never willing to collaborate. I mean, you got to have a couple of A players in there to help, spark off the mission and to come up with the ideas. But if everyone is a solid A player, you're never going to accomplish anything because they all want the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look at how the A's did, right? It was the A's, right? When they just got people on base. That's all you got to do. Get motherfuckers on base, and just by probability, you'll score. And that's all you got to just do that. Do that. Right. Well, and I think that's a big part of leadership and figuring out how to mine talent, rather than just managing people. It's not about making sure people show up at a certain time, right? You're not HR. We're not punching clocks. It's about making sure that the right people are in the right place to be as successful as they can. And I deal with this all the time with grades. People freak the fuck out. I got an A-. Do you realize that that's 2 steps above average? C is average. That means most people should be getting C's.
Right. President Bush.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you call a med student that gets all C's? Doctor.
Doctor.
Right. I mean, and that's not a bad thing, man. It's average.
Clearly.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
yeah.
So this preponderance to want to pretend like you have to be batting 1,000 all the time is just ego, right? And
it is.
I mean, there's nothing else that it is. It's just ego and not being able to get out of your own way. And maybe you're really not working on things that are important to you. Because if you had things this is my opinion and my speculation, but I know how my life is. When I have things that I'm working on that are important to me, I don't think about other stuff. I don't try to find ways. My ego doesn't try to find ways to create problems for me to solve. I have problems to solve that I'm happy with.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And that probably goes back to that aspect of that digital list that I have. When I keep crossing things off, I feel good. I don't have to add other things. If I add it to the list, then it's important. If I don't add it, it just wasn't important.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree, man. I totally agree. And I find ways to put myself in positions where I don't have a lot of stuff. There's always stuff that you're gonna need to do to accomplish something that you want to do. But as much as possible, delegate it. As much as possible, minimize the amount of time that it takes to actually get it done. Use technology to help you. Ask for help. That's another thing I learned how to do early on in my career, probably like you. 15, 20 minutes, you're stuck. You better be calling somebody.
Yeah,
why are you wasting time beating your head?
Well, back in the day when we started, there was no just Google it, right? Today, if you can't figure it out in that first couple of minutes, Google it, because someone else might have already did it, already accomplished it. So Google it. If you don't find it within the first couple of pages of Google, then you better start asking someone, hey, have you ever seen X?
Yeah,
if not, you're wasting time.
Right, probably because you and I have very similar backgrounds. For me, that was because Google didn't exist when we both started as network engineers. Man, I made some good friends that were really high-level CCIEs that worked at that time. It was Pac Bell, up in the NOC in the Bay Area, and I knew those guys, and I had helped them on the side for free, and I did it because I knew this was a relationship that was going to be beneficial for both of us. And there was multiple times where I could email those guys, call them, and I knew they were on shift because it was a 24-hour knock, and they would help me, man.
Yeah, for me, it was UUNet, which doesn't exist anymore. But
right. But I had a UUNet WorldCom connection. I just didn't have.
It's funny. It's funny. I still remember UUNet's DNS servers: 198.611 and 198.612.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. But it's the same principle, right? That's part of that social network. I mean.
I gotta check. I wonder if it's.
I don't know if they got migrated, man. But you and I still have those relationships. You and I call each other for help all the time.
Yep, it's still fucking there, dude. cash00.ns.uu.net. Yep. There it is. That's funny. I still remember it.
And that's it. Look for yourself, because there's enrichment out of suffering. But you have to know when to cap it. You have to know when to cap the suffering, and that's based on experience and capability.
Absolutely, and it's some of the things that I tell the young people that either they're students or the junior people at work. Don't ask me the same thing twice, and don't come to me without already showing me that you've done something. I literally had 2 students in this one class ask me in 2 separate things in an email. What does docs mean?
Right.
So I went, okay. Well, so what do I do? Because of the ass that I am, I sent them a let me Google that link for you.
Oh, see, I would have emailed them back and said it's where you put your fucking boat.
Yeah, well, it was spelled DOX. So
yeah, I know.
It would have been worse.
Smart ass.
Yeah. But I said, and so of course the one goes, I am now slapping myself. I will never ask you something again that I could Google first. Thank you. The other person went, I don't understand. And I went, well, I guess you're probably not going to do that well in this class.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is somehow it started to become politically incorrect to motivate somebody through a little bit of embarrassment. Now, look, I'm not talking about dragging somebody out in a public square and stripping them naked and walking behind them gonging a bell, if you get the Game of Thrones reference, right? That's not what I mean.
Not that I'm opposed to that.
Well, I'm not necessarily either in the right situations. It really depends on who's taking that walk. You feel me?
Yeah.
But a little bit of snarky criticism at the right time in the right situation can be a great motivator. Because listen, we're human beings. We learn a lot through pain, right? Suffering is good for us. Inspiration hides inside there. You have to learn how to suffer well if you want to be successful, right? Nobody is successful without sacrifice. You have to be, I think, judicious and strategic about how you suffer to make sure it serves a purpose. But because this is kind of one of the I think temporary side effects of technology is it's very easy very easy to take advantage of those with more knowledge and experience. And that's kind of like that question. Well, if you could ask me, it probably actually would have been demonstrably faster to type that same question into Google and hit enter. So why didn't you do it? Right? Why didn't you? Well,
Oh,
because
I was
people
proving a
assume,
point.
right. Well, people assume that you're going to answer, and they don't stop to think, well, wait, could this person be working on something that's time sensitive, that's important to them? Maybe it's not to me, right? That's why here's one of my pet peeves. When somebody interrupts and they say, am I interrupting? The fact that you just spoke is an interruption. How do you not realize that? Yes. Well, do you want me to come back? No, you already interrupted me. You might as well just ask your question now. Man, that bothers me, dude. Jesus Christ. You already interrupted
Well,
me. What?
So that part where you're talking about the suffering piece, this is the thing that I think people don't understand. And unless you have failed, unless you have lost and suffered that defeat, you will not know how sweet victory really tastes, and you will not ever want to taste that loss again. You have to know what that is. That's that sacrifice. I think that's important for people to understand that. Like, hey, I hate losing because I've lost before, and I did not like that feeling, and I don't ever want that feeling in anything that I do because I know what it feels like. It sucks. For those that don't mind losing, this is while Cam Newton from the Super Bowl, people gave him a lot of crap for him not speaking a whole lot. I think he's the one part which he actually stole he borrowed the quote, which is still a good quote. Show me someone who's good at a good loser, and I'll show you a loser.
Yeah.
I'll shake the other person's hand that defeated me, but I'm going to win next time. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I will win.
Yeah, well, you don't have to enjoy losing to be a good sportsman. I mean, right? You don't have to enjoy not being successful to be professional. Those are separate qualities, right? It's just separate properties entirely. The last thing I wanted to bring up real quick before I forget too, man, because I forgot it several times and remembered it several times already. The other thing that I found tremendously beneficial in my career, and even more so the more load I take on, is just employing simple scientific methods, right? It cuts through so much bullshit, not making assumptions that are unfounded, using existing research and literature, whether it's academic or not, right? And trying to just incrementally make marginal gains, right? Not looking to invent something that's a world burner. No, just small incremental gains. And then that builds momentum. It builds focus. It builds good positive energy, and you're able to do things. And you're freed from the shackles of believing in unicorns. I don't need a unicorn to have utopia anymore, right? You feel me? And that's a
true.
powerful
Very
thing.
true. Well, and it's kind of the building of the momentum aspect. I'm just going to do this thing because that builds that framework. I don't need to go outside that framework.
No,
this works.
No, and I find it's way more effective for time management to not waste time because I missed an obvious step because I made some unfounded assumptions. Just start at the beginning, right? I say this all the time. There's a reason why when we call tech support that we tell people or people tell us to reboot, because you're starting from a known working state, right? And from there, you can start making some limited assumptions. It's painful. You hate hearing it, but the idea has a purpose. The spirit of it has purpose, and building out logically and rationally from there. You save so much time not going down these stupid rabbit holes based on bold, unfounded assumptions.
It's true. It's true. The people will assume many things because one, it comes back down to their ego. It does. Yep. That's what it comes down to. There's no way I could be wrong. It has to be this. When clearly, when you look at the totality of the circumstances in any of these events, you would go, if you took a step back and you came at this from as unbiased of an opinion as you possibly could, you would see that you're going about this the wrong way. Right. And this happens a lot because people, they don't get over this aspect that they have to be right. You don't have to be right. This is the part, like I was just talking to someone in the office the other day. Probably the biggest thing that I learned from doing our doctorate was that you tested to see if you were wrong, and you either accept or reject the null hypothesis. Not testing that if you're right, you're testing to be wrong. And that was a huge aha moment for me when I was like, oh, wait a minute. Why wouldn't I test to be right? Well, because if you will start to make assumptions, you will start to do things to make yourself be right. In your mind, you'll categorize it instead of performing real science.
Yeah, well, and on that note, it's very similar to the idea that you have to prove something. No. The job of science is to measure and report. That's it. You're not proving shit. Think about it logically. It's impossible to prove it, right? In most cases, in most cases, you're not working on what really amounts to a scientific theory, right? Theoretical frameworks are proven or disproven. What you're doing is incremental gains on knowledge, and that doesn't require proof. That requires data.
Well, right, and whether or not this quote is actually attributed properly or not, it's still valid. Where it was like Thomas Edison has been quoted saying, "I didn't find one way to invent the light bulb. I found 1,000 ways to not do it."
Yeah.
Because if he didn't go through all those failures, he wouldn't have been able to get it to work. And that's the part where people have to you get. Did you quickly? Again, this is what a lot of people in the military, the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. You might fail, repeat, rinse, repeat. All right, you've acted. It didn't. That's not working. Why? Now you're going back to the observe part of the loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. Keep going through that and do it. The quicker you can do it, and the quicker you can recover from that failure, I think the more success you will have.
Yeah, well, and that's why a lot of times, especially at high-level leadership, I'm curious if you agree with this. My opinion in my philosophy of leadership is, in most cases, it's better to make a decision and move than it is to stand still and debate on whether the decision's right or wrong.
Oh, absolutely. I would rather, and this is a huge thing for younger people. I would rather you make a wrong decision than no decision.
Yep.
Because I can correct the wrong decision.
Yeah, right. Because you'll go back into that scientific method or the OODA loop, and you'll iterate. You'll come back to it, and you'll learn from it. But if you never iterate, you'll never learn. You'll never be able to build.
Yep. The other thing is to kill off weak apprentices. Just get rid of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to. Yeah, you got to.
I need one that's going to be able to kill me at some point. So, otherwise, the Sith will not continue to progress.
Yeah, man. There's an element to shucking the weak, or at least hurdling them. Right on, man. I think we have some good ideas. Time management, leadership, using technology to your advantage.
And even the piece of to the technology to get away from that aspect of 30 minutes or so to take a walk and just think. Yeah. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Clearing your mind and removing yourself. Like, don't walk inside the office. If that's where you're at the university, wherever you are, remove yourself from that environment and then just think about everything that's going on. And as quiet and a non-distracted environment that you can make it. And I think things will become much more clearer.
Yeah.
At least that's what helps me.
Dude, it helps a lot of people, man. The science is there, right? The data suggests that that's super, super effective. I totally agree.
And you've got 2 doctors that concur, so trust us, we're doctors.
We are. Believe it or not, people, we are. Oh, man. All right, dude. I think that's a close to episode 6.
Yeah, I think this is great. We've got this one in the bag. Hopefully, at some point, we one of our future episodes, we're going to talk about some people who are online that have a presence, in social media that why they feel the need to take down a lot of other social media accounts that may or may not be those of a terrorist-like organization.
Yeah, that's it. That's something I've been wondering about, man. You and I talked about that when I was in DC a couple weeks ago. I'm not so much interested in the mechanistic process people go through to get accounts removed. I'm much more interested in the psychology and the sociology of it. Like, right, there's some tribal shit going on there where people are taking it upon themselves to decide who is in that group and who's not. And I'm not judging it. I'm curious as to the thought process.
Exactly, and we have some people in mind that we'll wind up trying to reach out to them, get them on the show. Also, in future, one of our also upcoming episodes, we're looking at getting a retired naval aviator on who's been working in the U.S. federal government on the vendor side for the last, I don't know, I think 100 years, because he's really fucking old. And which I think will be good, because I know we have at least a lot of people that I'm involved with, because I'm in the DC area, spend a lot of time selling to the U.S. federal government or buying products. But I'm interested in the trends, especially the trends that he's seen since he worked for DEC back in the day. I mean, that's really dating them. I think he's even older than our chief of staff at the office.
Maybe, man. But you're right.
Yeah.
There's something to sitting down and it's a chance to be an archaeologist in a way, man, and go back and look at history and look at trends from a time that we didn't exist in, and gain that perspective and kind of incorporate that knowledge into your own worldview. A lot of times, man, all the time, I view talking to people as visiting other planets, because it's a different reality that I wouldn't know otherwise, right? But especially when you can get somebody that has
and because you're high most of the time.
Well, allegedly. Allegedly.
Hold on. Can we zoom in on those eyes real quick? Hold on. Let's see.
Right. So especially when you can visit somebody that, especially because of the pace of technology, was their deck. I mean, that's the beginning of it. I mean, we can talk about Kevin Mitnick and his hijinks at that point, right? Because that was part of deck. You can gain a lot of perspective that way. Not judging it. It's just data. Again, you're not proving or disproving anything. You shouldn't be judging it. What you should be doing is measuring.
I agree. That's a good part. Always be measuring.
Sweet. All right, my friends. That's episode 6 in the bag. Later, everybody.
Catch you all next time.
Bye.